The winter wind cut through the city like glass that night, sharp, merciless, and cold enough to make even the busiest people walk faster, heads tucked into their coats, hands shoved deep into their pockets. Snow had begun to fall, coating the sidewalks in a thin sheet of white, muffling the noise of traffic and footsteps. At the corner of a busy street, under the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, a man sat slumped against the wall of a closed shop. His hair was matted, his clothes torn and soaked through, and in his eyes lived a hollow, haunting emptiness that told stories of battles lost long before anyone noticed he was fighting them. His name was Michael, though few cared to know it. To most, he was just another shadow on the street, another invisible soul forgotten in the blur of city life. Hundreds of people walked past him that evening, rushing home to warmth, family, and dinner. Some glanced at him briefly, only to quickly look away, their faces tightening with discomfort. Others never noticed him at all, their eyes glued to glowing phone screens, their ears hidden beneath thick scarves. Michael, shivering uncontrollably, clutched a thin blanket around himself and whispered a prayer that maybe, just maybe, someone would see him. Not as a burden. Not as a failure. But as a human being. Sparkles, before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of one small action to change a life, please take a moment to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to this channel. Your support helps us spread stories that remind the world of what really matters. Sparkles. Michael had not always been invisible. Just a few years earlier, he had been a construction foreman with a small but steady income, a modest apartment, and the hope of starting a family with the woman he loved. But life has a way of unraveling quickly. A sudden accident at work shattered his leg and left him unable to continue in the only career he had ever known. The painkillers prescribed after surgery became a dangerous crutch, and the addiction crept in quietly until it consumed him. One by one, the pieces of his life fell away, his job, his apartment, his relationships, his dignity. Eventually, the world stopped seeing him at all. That night, as he sat on the freezing pavement, Michael wondered if his life was meant to end like this, cold, alone, unseen. He thought of his mother, who had died years earlier, her last words begging him to take care of himself. He thought of the dreams he once had, building a small house in the countryside, raising children who would never know the emptiness he felt. Tears burned his eyes, freezing against his skin. He was on the edge of surrender. Then it happened. Among the hurried footsteps and rushing bodies, one pair of boots slowed. A woman in her mid-30s stopped, her breath visible in the frigid air. Her name was Emily, a schoolteacher returning home after grading papers late into the night. She saw Michael, really saw him, and instead of looking away, she knelt down. Her voice was gentle as she asked if he was okay, though the answer was already written all over him. For the first time in months, someone treated Michael as though he mattered. Emily didn't have much money. She wasn't wealthy, powerful, or someone who could magically fix everything. But she carried a thermos of hot tea in her bag and a sandwich wrapped in foil, small comforts she had packed for herself. Without hesitation, she handed them to Michael. His trembling hands could barely hold the cup, but when the warmth touched his lips, tears spilled down his face. That simple act was not just food. It was dignity. It was hope. Over the next few days, Emily kept coming back. Each evening after work, she brought something, warm socks, a blanket, another meal. She sat with him, asked about his life, and listened without judgment. Slowly, Michael began to share his story. He admitted his mistakes, his struggles with addiction, his shame, and his fear. Emily didn't flinch. She didn't turn away like the countless others had. She reminded him that people could fall and still rise again, that no one was beyond saving if they wanted a second chance. It wasn't easy. Michael's path forward was a storm of withdrawals, setbacks, and self-doubt. There were days he lashed out in frustration, telling Emily to stop wasting her time. But Emily believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself. She connected him with a local shelter and a rehabilitation program. She walked with him to his first appointment, sat in the waiting room while he registered, and cheered for him when he made it through his first week sober. Every step of progress was fragile, like walking across thin ice. There were times when Michael almost gave up, but then he remembered the night Emily stopped when no one else would. That memory became a lifeline he clung to in the darkest moments. He wanted to honor her faith in him. Months turned into a year. Michael endured sleepless nights, counseling sessions, and countless temptations. He stumbled, but he kept getting back up. Slowly, his eyes regained their light. His laugh returned, soft at first, then stronger. With the help of a rehabilitation program, he learned skills that allowed him to take on part-time work. Eventually, he saved enough to rent a small room in a boarding house. It wasn't much, but to Michael, it felt like a castle compared to the cold streets he had once called home. But the most important change wasn't in where he lived, it was in who he was becoming. Michael began volunteering at the same shelter that once took him in, greeting new arrivals with the same warmth Emily had given him. He became a mentor for others fighting the same battles he once thought were unbeatable. His story became living proof that broken lives can be rebuilt, one act of kindness at a time. Emily never asked for credit. She never sought recognition. She simply believed that stopping for someone in pain was worth more than rushing past with indifference. And in doing so, she not only changed Michael's life, she inspired everyone around her. Her students heard pieces of Michael's story and learned that kindness is never wasted. Michael, in turn, carried her compassion forward, touching dozens of lives through his work at the shelter. And to think, it all began because one person stopped when everyone else kept walking. Years later, on a crisp autumn day, Michael stood in front of a small crowd at a community center, holding a microphone with hands that no longer trembled from weakness but from emotion. He shared his journey openly, the pain, the failures, the near hopelessness, and the miracle of someone believing in him. He looked out into the audience and saw Emily sitting quietly in the second row, her eyes filled with pride and tears. In that moment, Michael realized something profound: sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones who never call themselves heroes at all. Glowing star, if this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your engagement helps us keep spreading stories of compassion, second chances, and the incredible power of one human being caring for another. Glowing star. And before this story closes, I have one special request: comment below with the words, "Kindness changes everything," if you believe, like Emily and Michael, that even the smallest act can start a chain of miracles. Because in a world where so many pass by without care, sometimes all it takes is one person stopping, to remind us that every life matters. And that one act of kindness can change everything.